our good friend Ron Darling, who joins us now on the show. Ronnie, how you doing? Michael here.
Hi, Michael. I'm just so happy I don't have to pronounce Radwanska in the game tonight.
You know what? I've had to do it 5 times. Every time it's different. All right, so the name you have to pronounce is Tehran, and he's done a good job for them. And Wheeler has actually stepped up. And there were times during the beginning of this year you go, well, when is the consistency going to come? And then we keep hearing stories that he supposedly met with John Smoltz, and Smoltz told him something. What did he tell him?
Yeah. Well, I know that, Zach Wheeler grew up in the Atlanta area. So if you grew up in the Atlanta area, John Smoltz is almost a god. I didn't talk to John about exactly what he spoke to about Wheeler. But, ever since that talk, there's been so much more confidence in Zach. I can tell you, Zach has gone through a lot of the things I went through early in my career, and that is lots of movement, inability to always keep it in the strike zone, high pitch counts, which in today's game doesn't work, or at least get you deep in games. But he's gotten better as the season's gone along. And I think that, we live, especially in New York, in a world where, you've got to be a 15-game winner right away. And I think that whenever you look at a young pitcher, that he's gotten better from last year, exponentially better, I think is a great sign. It's a great sign of how hard he's worked.
Now, before the season started, it was leaked out that Sandy Alderson kind of laid down a challenge to his organization and said this could be a 90-win team. It's not going to be a 90-win team. And Don and I said at the time, Ron, that was a silly number to put out because if you put it out, anything less is going to be a disappointment. So is this season now a disappointment because an unrealistic number was put on top of it?
I don't disagree with that, Michael. I think... they'd have to go 28 and 2 down the stretch or something to get to 90. And plus, I looked at it this way: when people told me that the number 90 was leaked, I played on a team that won over 90 games 5 times, never went to the postseason. Different rules then, of course. So why stop at 90? Go straight to 100. I think that what you try to concentrate on, and it's not numbers. It's does your team get better? Are they have people on the horizon that are going to put you in a place? And I think what the Mets have to worry about is at some point, can they compete with the Washington Nationals? That's the team for the next 4, 5, 6 years that you're going to have to be better at than if you're going to want to win the division. Now, the wild cards and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot more math involved in that stuff. But anytime you start the season, what's your goal? To win the division. And are they getting closer to where the Nationals are? And, I think they're closer than they were last year, but they're still a ways away.
Here's what scares me, Ron. I talked about this yesterday. The Mets operate almost like a mid-market team. And the one thing that mid-market teams can't do is make mistakes on big money contracts. So after this year, the Mets have 6 more years left on David Wright's contract and 3 on Granderson. So if they miss the mark on these guys, they can't outspend their mistakes like the Mets and the Dodgers, like the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Red Sox can. Do you believe that this is just a season for David, or is he on the downside, and is this what David Wright is?
Yeah, I'm not going to, he has such a great breadth of work in his career, so it's hard for me to say that this is what is going to be the rest of the time. I think that he's been a little more injured than he wants to let on. I think that's part of it, but I'm not going to blame it all on injury. I think, there's a few things fundamentally wrong that David's doing, and I wonder if he's doing it because of the injury and trying to make adjustments. But this is a year for both David and Curtis Granderson when it's done. And I don't care, honestly, what happens in September for either Granderson or Wright. But this is going to be one of those back to the drawing board kind of winners for them, where you look in the mirror and you say, boy, do I want to have that season ever again in my career, or am I going to figure out some way, somehow, to either get stronger or quicker or smarter or whatever it takes to get back to that level that I'm sure both of them are used to. So it's going to be an interesting off season for them because, like I said, it doesn't matter what happens in September. The part of the season when they've been needed most, they have not produced.
Ron, do you think, because you watch him all the time, and Don believes this, and a lot of Met fans that I spoke to believe it, do you believe that David has ever been the same since he got beaned?
Boy, that's a tough question because, that's in his noodle. So it's hard to really judge a guy on what's inside of him. I will say that he has had spurts of great play that reminds you of all the great years that he's had and all the great times he's had. But those have been fewer and fewer and far between. So I guess I can say it that way, that, since Kane beamed him, I would say that his great moments had not lasted as long as we've seen in the past. Absolutely.
Do the Mets have the answer at shortstop in-house, or do you think that they are going to have to bring in a shortstop next year?
Well, I think my prediction, and this is totally out there, and for the real hardcore Met fan, I think that neither Flores or Tejada is going to play a huge part in the long-distance future of this team. My guess is at some point, and this is just from people I know that have watched these young men play all year, that Dilson Herrera, who plays second base, is going to be the shortstop someday, and that Matt Reynolds, who's the shortstop, is going to be the second baseman, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think that's where the future is going to be. I think this Herrera kid could be a real winning player, and I think Reynolds could be not a Jeff Kent kind of player, but an offensive second baseman. So that's I'm throwing that out there, that I don't think for Flores or Tejada is going to be a big part of the future.
Has Duda's year surprised you? Did you think he had this in him?
It surprised me. It surprised me because, Michael, he's an interesting kid that you knew if he got a little confidence that he had kind of the tools. He had a good eye. He's a behemoth of a kid, so he had the power. But my surprise is I didn't know if he was ever going to get that confidence because, some guys only need a 4-for-4 game, and they are loaded with confidence forever. And I think Lucas needed an entire season of confidence where he could really take off. And you know what? He's getting it this year. There hasn't been a lot of people around him to protect him, and he's done it despite, still struggling against left-handed pitching. But he's had this year, and we're back. You're watching it too, Michael. We're going back to where only the big guys hit a lot of home runs, not all the guys, and he's a big guy.
Lagares the real deal, in your opinion?
I'm not totally sold on his offensive play. He's still got a way to go as far as becoming that really solid offensive player. But what's in his favor is that he's as good a center fielder as I've ever seen, that I've ever played with, that I've ever witnessed. That's how good he is, Michael, day in and day out. So when you're that good defensively, 270, 265 with some home runs and some RBIs is really all you have to do. But I haven't seen a player control center field since Andrew Jones, and that's how good defensively I think he is.
Talking with Ron Darling, Mets and the Braves tonight on WPIX, a pre- and post-game on SNY. Before I let you go, are you surprised that Martin Prado has been this good for the Yankees? Is this the player that you saw with the Braves and the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, he's more the player I saw with the Braves. I don't know what happened down in Arizona. He definitely had some glimpses of the old player, but Prado, to me, reminded me a little bit of a right-handed Tony Phillips. You remember Tony Phillips?
Yeah.
In the late 80s and 90s. What a great player he was. He could play all kinds of different positions. He was good and adept at all those positions, but also clutch. He's a guy that doesn't strike out and makes contact, which today's lineups need. So I'm not surprised because the last time I saw him in the Atlanta Braves uniform, he was that good, and maybe he just needed a change of pace. Arizona is going through, one of those horrible years where, all you need is a little pick-me-up, and maybe getting on those pinstripes changed it all for him.
Tell Gary and Keith I said hello. Ronnie, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. Anytime.